Welcome back everybody, I'm Nick930 and this is my final review for the recently released Return to Jurassic Park downloadable content for Jurassic World Evolution. Return to Jurassic Park is a $20 expansion pack to the Dinosaur Park simulator from last year that introduces the highly requested original Jurassic Park trilogy assets, including the old school Ford Explorers, classic Visitor Center, and some legacy skins. But instead of just releasing a bunch of old 90s cosmetic alterations and calling it a day, Frontier Developments also included a number of significant gameplay alterations with its 1.12 update, some tweaks to the sandbox and challenge modes, and a brand new 4-hour campaign to experience. The new campaign takes place soon after the events of the original film in a sort of what-if scenario, where players are in charge of restoring Isla Nublar into working order with the help of John Hammond, Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm. Surprisingly, many of the original actors from the 1993 film reprise their roles, including Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and of course Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, a return to the scene of the crime, as it were.
Sadly, Attenborough passed away in 2014, so John Hammond's voice is instead handled by someone else, though I think their choice in voice actor fits the role decently enough.
This is why Jurassic Park must succeed, Dr. Grant. I want the world to have that same profound memory.
Cabot, on the other hand, Hammond's rookie intern, doesn't seem to mesh well with the rest of the cast, and comes off as a bit generic.
Does that paint a clearer picture for you?
Completely, Dr. Grant. And Mr. Hammond seems pretty confident we can get everything working as designed.
Though his mysterious involvement in the restoration of the park does evoke the general premise of the original film, and allows the experience to feel as authentic as possible, without just retelling the same story. The basic idea is that you need to round up all the dinosaurs that escaped from containment and put them back where they belong. Though I was disappointed to find that the T-Rex is nowhere to be seen. This was likely done to improve the pacing of the experience, and make the mission to create a T-Rex more meaningful. But it would have been nice to show the aftermath of the T-Rex paddock scene, like the flipped tour vehicles and the broken fence. As you progress through the campaign, you're slowly introduced to each building and feature through some basic tutorials that longtime players of the base game will likely find to be pretty boring. It does a great job explaining the features, but seems to hold your hand way too often, and only starts to get interesting at the very end when things inevitably start to fall apart. But this is where the challenge mode comes into play. Similar to the base game, players can jump into the challenge mode and attempt to earn a full 5-star rating before the clock expires, with limited funding and more strict research rules. It's one of the more interesting aspects of the game and provides a necessary challenge that the game badly needed when it first released last summer. If you're not as interested in racing against the clock or the slow pacing of the campaign, there's always the more open-ended sandbox mode that allows players to jump right into any of the game's maps. Unfortunately, players are forced to choose between either the Jurassic World or Jurassic Park assets, and there doesn't seem to be any way to combine them together. This feels like a pretty big missed opportunity, especially considering how badly both eras are in need of variety to make the parks more interesting. One of the most important new additions to the DLC is the new Park Tour building that can be placed and used to create distinct electric tracks for the classic Ford Explorer tour vehicles to automatically follow. Unlike the base game, the Park Tour is the primary method of showcasing the dinosaurs to park guests. Because of this, players need to plan their park more like a safari rather than a zoo. There's no viewing platforms or monorails to place along fences, and therefore, visitor pass can be simplified greatly around a large central hub area. This decreased focus in guest management allows for more time to deal with the dinosaurs, that can now attack ranger vehicles as they try to refill food and medicate sick animals. This increased aggression towards vehicles makes traveling into enclosures more risky, and encourages players to take direct control more often, rather than relying on the AI to take care of operations on their own. The new focus on the Ranger Jeeps is pushed strongly due to the removal of the ACU helicopters, which can make dinosaur breakouts much more challenging to deal with. However, new flares can be used to distract escapees, making tranquilizing more tolerable. Using the new helipad structures, players can now remotely breed dinosaurs off of Isla Sorna and have them shipped directly to Isla Nublar. This is a great new feature, as it frees up space and removes the need to drop giant hatcheries all over the map. But unfortunately, this only seems to function in the campaign mode, and there's no way to get it working in sandbox or in challenge mode. Included in this DLC are 2 new breedable species, the Compsognathus or Compies, and the fully flighted Pteranodons. These are great new additions, though there are a few caveats to them. Because of the incredibly small size, the compies are often very difficult to spot, as they blend in almost perfectly with the grass. This can make treating them for disease incredibly frustrating, as you're basically stuck waving the mouse around until the treat icon pops up on the screen. The pteranodons are even more unique. Because they are the first flying creature to be added to the game, they are not handled quite the same way as the other available animals. Instead of hatcheries, pteranodons are created through a special building called the aviary. The aviary can be expanded to house up to 6 pteranodons, but outside of the initial incubation and release, there's not really much else players need to do to interact with them. There's no food management, and there's no real need to track their comfort levels. Storms can damage the building, but otherwise it's a pretty lackluster option used primarily to boost your variety stats. Players can release these new species into any of the pre-existing maps. Though, because the aviary is a 1993 structure, it can only be placed when the 1993 era is enabled. Isla Nublar 1993 is now the largest available map in the game, and is perfect for setting up large safari tours without having to worry as much about maintaining space. However, I did find that the game's terrain edit tool was having difficulty modifying the map's elevation, especially when creating pools of water necessary to keep the dinosaurs comfortable. Isla Sorna, on the other hand, is a much smaller map, with incredibly narrow branching paths surrounding a medium-sized center. This map is clearly designed to be more challenging, and encourages players to take full advantage of the new tour system to allow guests to get a decent glimpse of all the animals. Regardless of which map you choose, the new Jurassic Park era gives players access to a number of models straight from the movie. Along with all these retro buildings, creatures, and vehicles, players can also customize dinosaurs with classic skins, including the old gray skin for the T-Rex, and the light quills on the raptors shown in Jurassic Park 3. Other new features include restroom buildings for guests, a new night vision camera filter, and a number of tweaks and fixes to the base game. Overall, the Return to Jurassic Park DLC is the first expansion that I can really get behind with Jurassic World Evolution. The $20 price point is arguably a little steep for what essentially amounts to a 5-hour gameplay experience, but all of the fan service available in this pack more than makes up for that. The classic skins, the original vehicles, the highly requested species like Pteranodon and Compies, and the return of several members of the original cast make this experience a must-have for fans of the franchise. The gameplay experience is pretty much the same as the base game from last year, so if you didn't like it then, it's unlikely this DLC will change your mind. The management aspects of the game are still very light when compared to Frontier's Planet Coaster game, and the lack of support for modified content really hurts the title's replay value. But again, if you're a big fan of Jurassic Park and have been waiting to torture your guests 1993 style, then this DLC might be for you. But what do you guys think? Is this DLC everything you wanted from the original film? Or do you feel like there was something missing? Let me know in the comments section. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.